I think everybody on the
Sure.
channel knows me and they're bored with me. I'm Vince
Yeah.
White. I'm an employment attorney, and I have another employment attorney here. I think the first true plaintiff side attorney to join us on the channel. Would you care to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, Vince. I don't know if that's true that I'm the first true plaintiff side attorney, but my name is Francisco Fernandez del Castillo. I'm an employment attorney based out in Chicago. Um, I think it's worth saying that I'm at a different stage of things than Vince is at. Vince has got this fully up and running operation, and I'm about 6 months into running my own firm, and I'm a solo practitioner. So, calling it a firm is maybe a little even grandiose at this point, but it's a LLC, and we're running cases. I've got a nice caseload, mostly lower income folks in job discrimination or retaliation cases, or in wage and hour type cases.
I love that. And I think, and I have a cough, excuse me. Listen, you being 6 months in, irrelevant to me, you're helping people. In
Sure.
terms of, that's what matters, right? And the reason why I say you're probably the first true plaintiff side attorney. Ivan, who's on the channel, and Eric, who came on the channel as well, they both had prior plaintiff side experience, but they're not
Right.
doing it today. Ivan's in-house, Eric does compliance work. You're in the thick of it, I think, more than anyone who's been on this channel so far. So I'm
Sure.
excited to have you.
Sure. Employment law is kind of its own thing, but I think being a plaintiff's attorney in some ways is like one of the last cool jobs that exists out there. Like when you grow up, there were certain cool jobs like being a journalist. Like no one can really be a journalist anymore. I mean, it's very hard to do when you kind of have to like get very lucky and or come from money. Um, Being a plaintiff's attorney, writ large, not just an employment attorney, but it's a little bit like I might get in trouble for this, but it's a little bit like being Robin Hood or being a pirate. So the dark
Yes,
side of
I love
the
that.
dark side,
Yeah,
that there's these evildoers out there. You're going to take money away from them and typically give it to people with less money. So that's actually like a really exciting way to live your life, and there's a certain adventure to it.
I love that perspective. I really do. Excuse me for the cough. I
You're fine.
I always say that employment law is like a meritocracy. You earn exactly what you should most of the time in aggregate, not in one, like any, you could do an amazing job in one case and lose it, right? But in
Sure.
the aggregate, if you're helping people, if you're doing right and you're doing a good job, you're going to earn well. And that notion of stripping it out of wealthy employers, and not all employers are wealthy, but they're always generally going to be wealthier than our clients, right? Um, and giving it to the people you help is, I mean, it's so gratifying, right? Is that why you got into the field?
Yeah, it's a big part of it. And I think it's a part of like why we're a little bit disreputable. Like if you look at the firms that are considered the most prestigious, well, who are they taking care of? They're taking care of the wealthiest people and institutions. And the people who are going after those wealthy people and institutions to take some of their money and give it to people with less money, well, they're kind of shamed a little bit. They're the subject of some negative rhetoric. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So listen, I love the white shoe firms. I'm glad that they do well for themselves, and I'm glad they can be hoity-toity. But I was at a party Monday night, a Christmas party, with a bunch of, well, you mentioned journalists. There's a bunch of journalists there, and a bunch of big law defense guys. They're bullies, we're friendly, but they're talking about a case, one particular case I had that they thought was, I guess, disreputable. They didn't like the way it turned out. They didn't like the case law. And what are you gonna say? At the end of the day, I just tell them, listen, it's not easy being sleazy. Like, get out of my face. I don't care. You're mad that you earn the same amount, basically, within reason, every year, and we get right to earn, win what we deserve, and that could be huge on a given year. Or you're 6 months in. I don't think you've probably had this yet. We've had losing years. We've had years where we weren't technically in the green. That doesn't feel great. I mean, that sucks. So yeah,
Even after you kind of got up and running and you got the huge volume of intakes, it's still possible to lose money.
Not listen, could I do it? If I made bad choices, I could do it. I could end up in
Okay.
the red for a given year. But it's case selection and it's attorney
Yeah.
selection, right? It's so hard to scale in this field. Like there's no way to just go and know what a good employment attorney looks like or sounds like, right? Like
Mhm.
you look around and I think you probably see this in your own as you get in the field. People who are polished and amazing might not run a case that well, you know? And
Hmm.
people who are a little edgy, a little scruffy, you find out they spent 60 hours in discovery and the other side is dying inside and they just want to pay. And it's like, and it's like, like I've got I'm thinking of a specific guy right now who's a lunatic. He is a certifiable lunatic with a severe alcoholism problem. He does not work for me. And I want to say he settled probably 7 million in attorney's fees as a near solo in the past 12 months. And he'll text me and he'll be like, did it again. And I'll be like, bullshit, lies, whatever. And he'll be like, he'll send, which he should not do. He'll send me settlement agreements. And I'm like, this motherfucker. Like, he just doesn't, I think he sleeps, drinks, and grinds. And he's helping people, but he's a lunatic. So you don't know. You don't in this field, you don't know, right?
Well, actually, I think that's a good thing to for people who are thinking of finding representation to know because just to be perfectly candid, like even being on the inside of it and knowing a good amount about the field, I think we're all influenced by image.
Yeah.
You look at the website, you look at I think this is a mistake, but maybe you look at where they went to law school or if they have any like big numbers in their results page. So I think it's helpful to remember that not you can't always judge a book by its cover.
Yeah. I think that's inherently true. And it's one of the biggest things for young firms like yours. Like I remember you
Yeah,
seem like a young guy. I don't know how old you are, but you seem younger than me. I think I started my firm when I was 27 or 28. And
yeah,
every single client would say, you look like a baby, and but the ones who would take a chance on me, and obviously I was cutting deals because I was, wanted cases. Um, you really felt it. You felt that trust and you went the extra mile. You tried to move heaven and earth for these people because
sure.
they put their trust in you, you know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, the amazing thing to me, and I deluded myself into thinking I was special for this, but I went out on my own, and I quickly went from a few clients to a lot of clients. And actually, I don't think it's me. I don't think I have any business development genius. I just think there's a lot of people who need help. Like there's just so many people that need help. There's more good cases than there are attorneys, and I think it's particularly true when you're representing folks who are maybe they don't make a lot of money an hour or a lot of money a year, but they have a really rock solid case. They were called racial slurs at work, they complained about it, and they were fired the next day.
Yeah.
uh, and it's amazing to me that some of those people have a little trouble finding representation because they make 15 bucks an hour. um,
Yeah. That's inherently true. I think there's two things going on. I mean, one, you're absolutely correct. There are way more cases than I'm not gonna say good employment attorneys, but viable employment attorneys. Because
sure.
you could be a true villain in this field and still help people. Right? Like
Sure.
it's the weird you could be the worst human being and you would still do right by your clients because that's how you get paid. Right? I know those people. I've met those people. Um, but there's also don't cut yourself short. Like there's hundreds of firms in our specific field who beg for cases routinely, and you're not doing that. So I think you are special. And part of what's making you special is you're listening, right? Like those clients, we've all earned 15 bucks an hour, but they come in earning on the lower end, often don't have the skills to put on a PowerPoint presentation and wow you with their case. You're choosing to listen and dig.
Sure. No, you know what? That's definitely actually true. I will spend, and I can do this right now because I'm starting up, and I'm hopeful someday I'll have folks help me with intake. But I will spend half an hour and I'll ask follow-up questions. And it's been amazing to me that what like some particular clients won't recognize as harassment.
Yeah.
Like I've had folks tell me, well, it wasn't sexual harassment because I wasn't touched. Oh, but they were mocking you. They were mocking you sexually, but you don't count that in your book. It's like, well, why is this coming up at minute 25 of our conversation? I think maybe you should have told me that your supervisor was making those kinds of comments towards you.
Yeah. And it's fascinating what people will accept. And then when you start being like, well, listen, I think that's a claim, they'll look at you like you're an insane person. And like you're just trying to talk them into being lawsuit happy. And it's like, this person tried to rape you. Like, why are you okay with this? And it's this long conversation of like, you should sue, you should fight back. This is better for you and possibly for the world, for society. It's a tough conversation though, right?
Sure.
So, okay, so you've been out on your own 6 months. Clients are pouring in. You're thinking about intake. You're thinking about additional attorneys for your practice.
I think I need to get my first very large settlement before I hire people. I'm not going to hire, first of all, I'm going to hire a paralegal first.
Yeah.
Or an intake person first. And I wouldn't want to invite someone onto something where I'm not comfortable that the money's going to be there month to month. So,
okay, interesting. When you say so, you mean that for both the intake people and the attorneys, or?
Yeah, no, more especially the intake people and
Yeah.
the attorneys, because the attorneys probably have more options and they'll be making more money. So I think it's even more crucial for folks who are, slightly more vulnerable. And
Yeah.
I gotta say, that's the other, this is like a little like rant, a pet peeve of mine about this field. But it's like one of the darkest aspects of this field is how the value of your case is tied to what you made. And on one level, I get it; it makes sense; it's part of it. But the fact of the matter is, if you make $500,000 a year and you're this very competent person, and maybe you're in this hyper specialized field where it might take you a while to find new work, but even so, you probably have a ton of savings. You live in a nice house. Maybe your spouse has a fancy career. You're going to be okay. Like you're gonna be okay. But if you work in a factory and maybe this is the biggest employer in town and you make an hourly wage, it's decent, but it's not going to wow anyone, and you lose that job, your economic future is forever changed. And the number associated with your economic damages is far smaller, but the impact on your life, the ability to pay your mortgage and provide for your family, it's far, I think in some cases it's worse. And it's just real dark. It's real dark aspect of the field.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And we can even go a step further because those same people who maybe don't have the war chest to sit on, right,
Mm-hmm.
are going to be under pressure to take a settlement they might not have wanted to take because they can't sit around and litigate for 18 months. And
Sure.
the outcomes, they're not even close sometimes. I'm sure you're doing this too. I can remember I used to have my original office was in Jackson Heights in Queens, which is this incredibly diverse neighborhood. Many, immigrant populations come through Jackson Heights as they move into New York. Tremendous food scene, like the best in the country, as far as I can tell. Like, so cool. But people would come in and you'd be like, "Hey, great. So we got an offer of 20 grand. I don't think you should take it." They'd be like, "Take it." Whoa, wait, no, we can at least triple that. Like, we don't need to take it. They're like, "Take it right now." And it was almost like, I can remember, I joke about it on the channel. I would go to people's houses and be like, "Please don't. Like, just give me a week. Can I just get a week? Can I get you better?" And I get why they were doing it. Like, they have family that's not getting medical care. They have family in the old country, wherever it is. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm worried about, yeah. Oh, my mom is in Sri Lanka and she needs chemo. I can tell you, I need the money today. right? Like you're like,
Yeah.
okay, all right, that sucks, but okay. Um, and it's there's no I don't think there's anyone in the legislature level like even thinking about how it could be like restructure this or make it more equitable. Do you have any ideas? I'm always curious.
Well, I'd be interested to see if you disagree with this. I mean, look, I mean, one of the things I loved about your channel, I mean, I definitely developed what you would call a parasocial relationship with you because I was just listening and I was like, I'm just like, this guy seems like he knows what he's talking about, and the things you were saying just made sense to me. But one of the more, um, just one of the things that I think is that you have to, if you don't have a lot of economic damages, um, you gotta the way to maximize the value of the case is to you gotta just take the case further, right? And that goes to what you're saying is that like these people have more financial pressure to settle early. And one of the things I loved about what you said is you always have to like put the client in charge. And I actually, based on you saying that, like I frequently remind my clients when I'm giving them my advice, it's like, I think I could get you the money sooner, but you're going to take a haircut. And then I'll follow that up with, but like, you always need to remember, you are my boss. You tell me what to do. If you tell me to settle the case tomorrow for $500, I'm going to tell you I think that's a terrible idea, but you're the boss.
Yeah, it's hard. It is hard sometimes, right? Like I always try to take that let's work backwards approach. What's your goal? What's my win condition? What do I need to make happen to get you where you want to be? And people will stare at you like, "Whoa, guy, you're supposed to have a plan here." And it's like, "We'll have a plan, but like I need to know the end. What's the goal line?" I definitely agree. I just wish there was a way to make the field more fair. I also I mean, part of why I started doing the daily videos was, and this is great for me, our firm started to have more and more wealthy clients. And that's great because cases are worth more, to your point, right? But then you're like, wait, but I'm turning down people with viable claims who were wronged, and I'm just not going to help them. That's not great. That doesn't feel good, and at the rate you're going, it sounds like you're going to be there in 2 or 3 years, frankly, right? Like as the clients come in and you produce results very quickly, that the affluency of your clients goes up because people are like,
Sure.
listen, I'll give you X. Like, I don't care. Like, let's go. And you don't say no to that. You don't say no to the money because they were wrong too. I don't know. That's why I started the channel as like to assuage
Sure.
my conscience almost.
Yeah. Well, I mean, um, I think there's some cases involving lower income people can be quite valuable,
They can.
and you see that because every once in a while there's a nuclear verdict, and I sort of hesitate to draw people's attention to those, but it is sort of the proof that like if you try the case, the money's there. Like, normal people are not as jaded as employment attorneys and judges and arbitrators. And if they find out that you fired someone for complaining about being called racial slurs, they might want to punish you. They might want to punish your company. But
Yeah.
it takes the sort of like the fortitude to try the case. And I think that personally, I think that's a very smart thing to do if you're a younger attorney, is to take some of these lower income cases where the harassment is egregious. And I've seen what gets filed for higher income people, and I've had a few higher income intakes that I've turned down because I desperately wanted them to have cases, but they just didn't. And I'm like, I'm not going to send a letter if this isn't something I would file.
Yeah.
So I had to pass. But what I've noticed the trend being is that oftentimes, and maybe that it just seems like a lot of the real egregious stuff is happening to people who make less money. Now, maybe you know better than me because you've been doing this for longer, and you've seen what the higher income people are dealing with. But I'm happy to like, I've got a few cases in mind that I just the client's the boss. I'm going to do what he or she says, but I'm kind of eager to just try them and see what happens. It's a smart thing to do if you're a young attorney, because you really make a name for yourself. If you go out there and you represent someone who works at Walmart, um, who had some awful things happen to them, and you get a big number, even frankly, even if it gets reduced. Um, I mean, that's kind of how you make your reputation.
You make your reputation, you establish your brand both with potential clients, but also, even more importantly, with defense counsel. Like,
Yeah.
how, I mean, I'm sure you've had this interaction where defense counsel, actually, maybe you haven't, because you do try cases. I know some newer.
Well, no, no. I plan to try cases. I haven't done it yet.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
I know for a fact, I can think of at least two firms that I've had interactions with over the years, plaintiff side firms, who defense counsel will openly say, and they're not going to try the case. They didn't even open the discovery file. I'm like, what? Like, they're like, yeah, we put a read receipt on the discovery disclosures to see if they actually opened it. They didn't open it for 9 weeks. And I'm like, oh my God. Like that, like you're sitting there like, how can that be? They make money. Like what? And the defense counsel is just gonna like, yeah, they're not gonna try the case. They're not prepping. They didn't even consider making a motion to compel additional discovery. We didn't even give them everything they asked for, and they didn't know for weeks. And they're like chuckling behind their hands about it, right? So they know that firm's gonna take whatever, whatever, right? And it's depressing, but they're making. So yes, I agree with everything you're saying. You've got to do the work, put in the repetitions, and then you're going to end up old and washed up like me.